Minister, hold a moment, please. The member from St. Catherine Northwest.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Can I borrow it? Then I'll lend me. Madam Speaker, this is a particular issue that is close to my heart. Previously in the lower house, I had indicated some concerns in the upper house. I had indicated some concerns for which I won't rehash today because we are not discussing whether or not we will have casino gambling. But instead, we are far along that trajectory. We have already granted license, and so the debate has to shift to governance and what should governance include. So we're not having the question of whether or not we should have casinos, but indeed, how do we ensure that the high risk is mitigated and that the great benefits are maximized? In any area of government, Madam Speaker, one must ensure that there's regulatory equilibrium. In this case, it must be that it is not only strong technically, but that it represents a people-centered and a Jamaica-centered approach. Indeed, let us not misunderstand casino gaming to be the same as gaming lounges. There's a much higher risk to casino gaming than gaming lounges. And to that extent, there must be adequate attention paid, and not just an extension of oversight from that which existed before. What we are seeking to do now cannot be an extension only of what applied to gaming lounges, but that there must be a greater logic around casinos. To be fair, Madam Speaker, there are some strengths in this bill, one of which is the internal control systems and structures, segregation of duties, though there might be a need for rewording of some of those spaces where it's stated to prevent more so than to mitigate. It would be impossible for regulations to prevent fraud, for example, but the regulations are important to mitigate against it. And some of those words need to be reviewed. Segregation of duties is important. Surveillance standards have been strong. Record keeping in these regulations seem to be strong. Equipment certification controls to ensure that there is no bamboozling and bandooling of persons seeking to gamble. Integrity foundation is present. However, Madam Speaker, that alone is not full governance. System protection is indeed not people protection. Let's look at some of the core gaps that I found in that consideration. First of all, it's system protective, it's investor assuring, it's technically structured, but again, as I repeat, it's not people-centered, it's not people protecting, and it's not Jamaica-centered. While it protects the system, it exposes patrons, workers, and local suppliers without much mandate within these regulations. Let us be clear that these mandates neither existed in the license that we granted, and therefore this may be our last bat at the wicket to ensure that there is some protection in these cases. One of the gaps, of course, is that the patron's protection is lacking. If you look at Part 3 Regulations 8 to 12, it mentions problem gambling, but just a mention. It actually does not operationalize the protection of problem gambling. Now, we must note that one of the main differences between gaming lounges and casinos is no limit. A person can bet his full stock at any given time. In the initial conversations, I was against the participations of Jamaicans. However, we are where we are. And so therefore, how do we protect Jamaicans? And there are countries such as the Bahamas that limit resident participation in casino gaming. But we had made decisions counter to that, and so we are where we are. No national exclusion registry is in place. no third-party reporting channel, no mandatory intervention standards. So, for example, a person who is having a gambling problem, there's in the regulation that he can self-report. But having self-reported, there is no national registry. So it's almost as if it is curtailed to that casino. And that him can go to Caymanas tomorrow and then continue his gambling negatives. Indeed, it is within short order we expect to have more than one casinos. And so therefore a registry becomes even more important. I believe the bill indicated that we can have up to 3 casinos, but there are other forms of gambling. And then if this person is having the negatives of problem gambling, the extension of that must be protected moving forward. No, there's no, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, can I have some protection, Madam Speaker? There's no third party reporting. And therefore, the regulations insist that the person with a gambling problem must be a reporter of himself. And there is no way that his or his wife or her husband or children can then carry out a third-party reporting system that mandates intervention because this person hasn't acknowledged that they are having a problem. In this case as well, there were no mandatory intervention standards. We recommend that a national self-exclusion registry or a national exclusion registry should be in place. That third-party reporting, especially from family and community members, churches, etc., co-workers, as well as boss and employees and employers should be able to make such recommendations. We recommend that social workers should be able to participate, that mandatory staff intervention training should be there to identify problem gambling, and that we should have recorded intervention protocols and behavior triggers moving forward. Madam Speaker, this is not new. As in United Kingdom, for example, there are customer interaction rules and third-party reporting. In Canada, provincial casinos, there are centralized exclusion registries. And in Australia, there's a mandatory intervention trigger that we can look at those regulations moving forward. There's also a gap in debt gambling. Casino credit is actually allowed. And debt gambling is the strongest harm and one of the greatest negatives that we can have. Documentation is there, but there's no protection. For example, when you allow for credit gambling, there's what we call loss chasing. A person is losing, they continue to chase a regain of that negative. In fact, he always believes that the next chance is going to be the victory. And this is more negative for the poor who went there with the need to earn and not just the value, the entertainment value of gambling. So a lot of persons with low income attend the casino with the need to get his rent, with the need to get his daughter's school fee, and therefore not get to that, the need to find the car payment, and in the need to find the car payment, lose the rent. And then he's in the last chasing to get back the rent because now he's in the thing on credit. Now, Madam Speaker, this leads to household collapse. This leads to multiple loan cycles, workplace misconduct, thievery. This leads to mental health risk, and indeed have been proven to lead into suicide. We recommend, therefore, that we prohibit casino credit for Jamaica residents. Now, the large persons who are gambling to be competitive for these big gamblers who fly in, credit in the casino is allowed. But we believe for Jamaica residents, there should be a limit on, in fact, a prohibition of casino credit. We also feel that there should be a ban on credit card gambling transactions. Now, that was actually stated in the regulations that you shouldn't be able to directly buy chips. But later in the regulations, it indicated that you could register your credit card. And so therefore, while you couldn't directly buy chips with your credit card, a loophole existed where you could register your card and later do whatever. Now, the fact that it's an integrated resort development, then you could be staying in a room because it's an integrated resort development. Then you could have been at the restaurant, but it has no limit, having registered your card, on what you can use that for. And we believe that there should be a limit on that. Therefore, you allow only cleared available funds for residents. Tourists can do as they feel. And this exists in designations like the United Kingdom. Credit card gambling is banned in the United Kingdom. So therefore, these exist. Credit card gambling is also prohibited in Australia. Canada, resident casinos, credit is restricted. We also believe that there should be mandatory spend limits, and that should be daily, weekly, and monthly limits, so that for residents, Jamaican residents, in the main, the conversation here is for Jamaican residents, because that is our ultimate duty, to protect these individuals. That there should be mandatory spend limits. Now, therefore, within the thing, we saw no enforcement of spend ceilings, and the limits seem to be voluntary with no real structure. Mandatory maxes should be there for daily, weekly, and monthly, and we feel that there should be a tiered verification system for persons who we perceive to be going above their threshold. Australia is promoting loss limits, and even in Europe, multiple jurisdictions have mandatory limit systems emerging. Additionally, I think that there were gaps as it relates to local employment. There are within the regulations the requirement for adequate competence. However, there is nothing there for operator skill development, and that could lead just to the importation of skill as versus to the development of our Jamaican citizenry. And so no skill transfer program was in the regulation. No period of replacement was in the regulation. And so we may find that you just have people from America, from existing casino spaces, coming from the Philippines, and therefore we are recommending that both local and CSME minimums for employment threshold, not just line staff, but management, could be considered as a part of our casino experience. Also, we should have targets for quotas of employment, operator-funded training academies. Now, this is very important because to this point, we have not had a conversation about the casino-specific skills. And we have casinos that are about to be open. But who exactly? And also, it becomes parasitic to the current hospitality practitioners, who then lose staff to the casinos, who then have to be parasitic because they're not preemptive. Member from my adjoining constituency, they're not preemptive in ensuring that the staff training is. And I need back mine from you. We swap, right? So therefore, we will want that limit. Additionally, we could work with Heart to be doing some training now in the casino skills and the certification pathways. We believe that there should be local understudies for any expat, and those mandates should be in place, and we should have skill transfer milestones. These exist, for example, in Singapore. Integrated resort training academies are required in Singapore. They must have training academies. Workforce conditions are tied to license in Australia, and local workforce development obligations exist in Canada. We saw none of those in our regulations. And so, therefore, the Jamaican license didn't guarantee Jamaican careers or Jamaica employment. Another problem we saw was that resorts can become spending enclaves, and it was indicated that they will have restaurants, they will have shopping, they will have casino, they will have room, they will have attractions and amenities. It therefore means a person don't have to leave that space. And that is a danger towards the tourism industry as is, because it actually sacrifices time and money, which is necessary for attraction consumption. So a lot of our tour operators, etc., may be concerned that this is going to be a competitive activity more so than a complementary activity. And there was nothing in the regulations to encourage the complement capacity of it more so than the competitive capacity of it, such as, for example, advertisement spaces, such as, for example, allowing for booking tables within the space so that it doesn't become a parasite on the general economy. And this, from an economic standpoint, Madam Minister, is very risky because these persons will send back the profits to the international mother spaces and mother countries, and therefore, especially with local gambling, becomes more of a consumer of income more so than a producer of income, robbing the shops, robbing the bars, robbing the round robins of yes, right, and sell it back overseas. Therefore, we were also concerned that there was no supplier participation requirement, no procurement reporting, no structural local linkage rules. And it seems as if we don't seek to change the mistakes that we have made in the past. Because we have made these mistakes before, right? And we have not, in now getting another bite at the cherry, sought to make some of these realities. For example, these large things, I've seen nothing to suggest that they need housing as a part of their thing, which we have seen squatting evolve based on tourism construction before, with the gravitation to the space so as to participate in construction and in seeking opportunities. We saw nothing in those regulations. And so, therefore, we thought that the local economy linkage plan should be created, that they should have to create a mandatory local economic linkage plan, that local procurement targets should be set, annual local spend should be reported, SME supplier development programs should be in place, open vendor registry for Jamaican firms, and Jamaican cuisine, culture, and entertainment should be included. I've been to some hotels, not many. I'm not as wealthy as some of the others over that side who have been to all the hotels. But I've been to hotels with more. No, me and you know the script. Me and you not the same thing. We not the written speech. But what happens there? I've been to hotels, multiple restaurants. Yes, me and you. All right. Multiple restaurants and only a Jamaican night. Multiple restaurants. And therefore, if Jamaica cuisine is not being consumed, then Jamaica agriculture is less likely to be consumed because the cuisine defines the input. So when you are going to be having pancake for breakfast, then how breadfruit are going to say? When goat is stuck only to Friday night, then how is it our farmers are going to, because leg of lamb is the thing. These large hotels should be mandated to have at least one local restaurant that then now becomes an exposure to consumption and the consumer of our local produce. Again, this is not abnormal. Local linkage obligation is set in Singapore. Community supplier framework exists in Canada. Regional procurement commitments are required in Australia, and we have not implemented those things moving forward. So, in essence, at this point, I'm not having a conversation that I'm anti-casino. That is long gone. That conversation have moved. But we must be pro-governance. We must be pro-protection of our citizens, and we must be pro-encouragement that it does not become a enclave, but instead become an anchor. And so we are recommending, just for conclusion, that we have a exclusion registry, third-party reporting, resident credit ban, credit card ban for gambling, mandatory spend limits for Jamaicans, local employment minimums, skill transfer mandates, and local supplier linkages, including guaranteed entertainment consumption. I don't see the minister today, but in some of our hotels now, we have persons from overseas providing entertainment in some of our hotels. And so therefore we want to ensure a country awash with entertainment talent, that is reserved for those realities. So, Madam Speaker, I'm not seeking to promote fear, but indeed to promote structure. National benefits must exceed national harm. And to that extent, Madam Speaker, I move that we reconsider the inclusion of some of these recommendations in the regulations as they exist. Thank you, Madam Speaker.